What's up, guys? This is Ninja again, unfortunately. And today we have a channel called the Veritasium. 18.2 million subscribers. This has 375,000 views in 2 hours. Definitely has fallen off. Only 1,000, almost 2,000 comments. Well, 300 off of, but close enough. But anyways, we'll see. We're not gonna see, but anyways, the point I wanted to get to was, we'll start over. Fuck it. I want to point out
This little mechanism shrinks when you try to stretch it. You try to pull it apart and all of a sudden it pulls back on you.
That's so weird, right?
Here it is under controlled conditions. There's a cup hanging from the mechanism, but now look what happens as you add water to it. All of a sudden, the cup shoots up. The amount it shoots up is tiny, but the physics...
They added a bunch of doohickeys and doers to make it look more engaging than it actually is. I've seen a little bit. I've only seen about a minute, or up to a minute rather. But I listened to a bit. But anyways, I wanted to listen to it because I was kind of surprised at the direction that this went. So that's why I wanted to chime in on it. But there you go.
Physics behind it is so counterintuitive, nobody thought it was possible.
It feels like it violates physics.
So counterintuitive.
Because it's designed to be that way.
Nobody thought it was possible.
Because, again, it's designed to look that way. Nobody creates, like, there's no point to what it is. Like, that, you won't find that in nature. It's designed to trick you. Nature isn't doing that. It's built to exist. It wants for life to flourish, basically. Don't get me wrong, there's bugs that will, like, fake that it's a leaf and shit, but again, that's a survival mechanism. Basically, this, like, what the hell, there's no point.
It feels like it violates physics.
That's why it's fun.
Right, because it's not natural.
The paradox that controls this mechanism governs everything from mechanical systems to food chains, from traffic jams to power grids. And to
Not really.
understand it, you just need to ask a simple question. What will happen to this weight if you cut the green rope?
Now this already is because based on their guesses, you can tell a lot about somebody. I will let them go first to give you an idea.
Where's this going to end up? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Or is it going to stay the same?
He's asking random people, random fucking sheep. It doesn't matter.
Can I touch? Yeah, you can try it.
It's like the same group of people. I don't know what the hell that was about. Like this. Oops.
Or is it going to stay
I don't
the
understand the edit.
same?
It starts with and then ends with ooh of the same people. I don't.
Can I touch? Yeah, you can try it.
Nothing.
You don't think anything's going to happen?
In the same place.
Wait,
Third time they showed them.
it is gonna be
Second time they showed them.
right over there.
But like it's going to fly off or what?
No, not too much, but probably it's going to go to this way.
If you cut the green rope, this is going to come down.
It will go down.
It will go down.
It drops.
It'll fall down, won't it?
The first thing that occurs to me is as soon as you cut that, the weight is going to drop. I
So
imagine the weight ends up lower than it started.
the point I'm trying to get to is this: they all took shots, but they have no info, basically. And the first design that that's what made me right there. Like after I seen him,
As soon as you cut that, the weight is going to drop.
as soon as I seen him take a guess, I was like, okay, you're a fucking idiot. And by the way, look at his facial hair. Like, I've been knowing this. There are people and they fake facial hair. Like, you're not supposed to have that good of a beard or a mustache. You're not supposed to be like someone took a marker and just and then and then it turns into facial hair. You know what I'm saying? Another person, Long Island Audit, like on one scene, he's like he's outside doing something, and his beard looks amazing. It looks thick. It looks like it's fully grown in, and he's indoors talking to a camera, and it's like barely patched. And it's like why is people doing this? That Hollywood needs to die. That fake needs to die. But I got sidetracked, admittedly. The point is, why are you taking shots in the dark when you have no details? You have no information, and you're just taking a shot in the dark. Why?
Drop. I imagine the weight ends up lower than it started.
So I don't care. So first and foremost, this is how I would. Okay, how far do you think? It depends. In the nature, that's why I'm kind of pissed off at another Ross Tyson, because he said maybe. That was his story. When asked in all science, if you had to break it down to one word or one phrase or one word, what would it be? He said maybe. Me, it was depends. Right? Like he was going down the correct road, but he's not going far enough. Like I went, I've made this journey more often than he has, basically. And I'm kind of hot, so forgive me. I'm wearing like clothing that's overheating me, but that's why I got my heat stroke in the first place. So I'm very cautious of it. But bounce. Bow, bow, bow. Nope, you don't get to see shit. Fuck you. You gotta pay for access. Yep, I just dropped my pants. Hang loose. There we go. Anyways, so the point here is, first and foremost, how strong are those springs? How much weight is involved here? Is this connected? Like, what is this? Is it just a thing? How much does it weigh? Right? There's so many like tricks and bullshit tied to it, but none of them asked why. Basically, none of them asked why. That pissed me off, because you're taking a guess at something, and because it's not in your backyard, yeah, oh well, I'll just shoot in the dark. It's like I hate watching people play video games and they just let themselves die or whatever, because it's like they're this has no value to me, so it's just whatever. Basically, in that mindset, that's why so many poor people are starving today. It's because they have to jump through so many hoops that when they can't, oh, you must be lying, denied. That's basically what it is. Because people make that mindset, right? So that was essentially, that's, you can end the video right there. That's basically it, right? But being a kind god, I forgot his name, but like in the movie 300, what's his name? The big guy, tall guy. Yeah. Anyways, him. The kind God, right? He had the mindset. He actually believed it. I don't. I just mock it and say it as a joke, but people take up the wazoo. I don't know why, but whatever. The point is, though, like when asked, "What do you think will happen?" Why didn't you get, like, you don't have all of the information. And if this was more of a paramount, like if your life was on the line, would you just take that shot in that dark or in the dark? You know what I'm saying? That's why there are people that will what's it called, when you play poker, there are people that play free poker, and then there's people that play for money. But I can play as if I'm playing for money, but for free. Basically, I can have it be like I can play as if my life was on the line, and you need that kind of equation and ability. And it's just, if someone asks you, don't just brush it off. Like, take it seriously, right? Depending, of course, depending. If you're in a forum, like for example, I'm on YouTube. If someone comes by and just starts asking me questions, I'm not gonna go bend over backwards and be, I'm gonna trust you. No, it's, you have to prove yourself. You have to make sure they're legit before you start playing. You know what I'm saying? Once you know, or once you're gonna play that game, now take it seriously. So Veritasium, alright, the guy that was like, oh, I think I'll go down. He just took a shot in the dark. He literally got the sniper rifle and just was like, bam, and like that was it. And it's like, you didn't even look through the scale, like the scope, dude. Like, at least aim. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck? So that's kind of the critique here. Aim. That's so hard to ask, and just that, if you apply that same logic, Social Security would be different. The healthcare would be different. Like, America wouldn't suck. Basically, it would be the result, because there'd be less manipulation, less exploitation, and more for the people who actually need what they need and get what they get. But because they need that and they want that, they promote that. Basically, the people who have money, I want you to not have any standards, so I'm gonna make you make you the most popular streamer in the world. But people want, like, let's say I had a daughter and I wanted her to get married one day. I want her husband to actually marry her for her and be with her forever. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of important to me. And the same thing is true with society. And again, like, if you have, like, you don't care, basically what it sounds like. So why are you playing? Like, it's the false alpha syndrome. Basically, it's, they don't care. This is my best guess. Da, da, da. Like, why are you listening to that? He's he's the number one, one of the most popular commentators, content makers in the world. Why? Clearly, he, like, is less than. And you have me, and like, all I get is haters and trolls and bots asking me to buy fans, buy this. I don't know. Fuck you. Go away. Right. Anyways, so my question again: how strong are those springs? How much weight is this thing down here? And I asked that because when you cut that, both swing springs doing what they're doing, well, it'll probably retract, basically. Depending if this thing, like, if, like, for example, this string could be, what's what I'm looking for? It could be long enough where there's actually, like, it doesn't matter, basically. There's no slack. And there's no tension and there's no slack. And the string is just there for looks, basically, because what's it called? That's like, it's hard to explain, but either way, when it's cut, both springs are just naturally, that's what they are, anyways. Even if the spring, or the string rather, you see what I'm saying? Like, even if like, so the string is tight, but how tight is it? Right? You see what I'm saying? There's variance. These outside things are not doing anything. It doesn't matter. They might as well not be there. They're just there to, they're like, look over here, everybody. And meanwhile, it's like, where's my thumb? I'm saying, where's my thumb? Oh, it's in your mouth. And no, it isn't. I'm hiding it, right? It's just misdirection. That's all it is. These things don't matter, right? Well, for the equation I'm telling you, because if the strings are what's called at the max value, then when that string is cut, then nothing will happen. The springs are holding it. You see what I'm saying? Like the springs, or the strings rather, it'll fall, but it'll balance basically, and it'll be the same thing. So it can go down, or what's it called? If that thing is cut, or the string, what's it called? Is under hell of tight. It's hell of like, oh my god, I can barely hold. And the string's like, what the fuck? Why are you crying, you little bitch? And he's like, ah! And then they cut, and the string's like, and it pulls back and sets to nothing. And it can be either way. It depends on the data. That's why I say in the beginning, it depends, right? That's why Neil deGrasse Tyson, though he's a full-on dumbass at the end of the day, he's still on the right track, or he says maybe, because it's kind of the same thing as it depends. It's just he's not as defined as me as far as like understanding the nothing. Anyways, that's the idea. So anyways, whatever happens, it depends.
Here's a closer look at the setup. You have a spring hanging from a hook up here, and then via this green rope, it's connected to another spring that's carrying this weight below them.
Right, and we have no details about the springs, the rope, or the weight.
There are two extra ropes here as well.
Or the rings, no details.
Well, so the red one and the black one are slack. They're not
right, but that's all okay. They may as well not be there, is what you're saying.
Under any tension whatsoever, so they're not actually carrying any weight.
Right.
What's gonna happen if you cut the green rope?
You can pause the video here and try to figure it out for yourself.
Wait, what?
Here it
Nothing happens?
is in slow motion. So even though the
It depends. So if it goes down or it goes up, either way could be true because it depends. It depends on how you set it up. But I'm just like, did it go down? What did it do? Like, because how did you set it?
ropes on the side were slack and we cut the only rope in tension, the weight somehow went up.
Right.
Okay, so if you're unconvinced that cutting the green rope actually makes the weight go up, here's a huge version of the experiment. So the black and red ropes are still very much slack, and it's just held together by this tiny piece of green rope here. So let's see what happens now.
But look at the swings, or the springs rather. Like, there's a lot of coils. So that means that they're strong, or they're weak, or like, I don't know.
Okay, you ready?
And the spring is being cut, so that spring is no longer a factor. By default, it's going to go to the outside strings, but the springs, we don't know how strong they are. It can either suck up or go fall loose. It depends.
Okay, 3, 2.
Like this example here, it doesn't. Why are you looking away? Like, it's not one of those. Like, that just shows you, like, the guy doing this example is a fucking idiot, right? Because even he's like, oh my god, this might blow up. It's a fucking string. You're cutting a string. That's all you're doing. And the two rubber.
1.
That's actually insane.
That was pretty good, right?
Still don't believe it looking at.
It still don't believe it. Looking at. I don't know what the fuck happened. The springs look smaller because there's a lot of weight compared to. It's hard to explain it, but basically the springs were really drawn out, so the weight is a lot. But being that the spring was there, both springs are only 50% drawn, basically, because that weight. How can I explain it? It's hard for me to explain because I don't have the educate or the education. I can see it, I understand it, but it's hard for me to explain. I think that's been my problem for a long time. The springs, as you can tell, are nowhere near as expanded, basically, right? So clearly, the outside strings are being an effect, but there's two strings. It's hard to say. It's again, there's a lot of variance to the situation because like the strings and the measurement of the springs and the two together, it can be the springs are calculated to be as strong as they need to be so that the strings are as tight as it would have been, but less or more. You get what I'm saying? Like it depends. It all depends. What I'm saying.
Okay, so why does this actually happen?
Because the springs are contracting back and just pulling it together.
Maybe the tension in the, this part is changed.
It releases the tension in the springs and only goes to the length of the ropes.
Che credevo che le molle fossero tarate per il peso, invece no.
Look at what happens when you remove the
Molle fossero.
I thought the springs were calibrated for the weight, but they weren't. Again, we don't need that kind of thinking. Don't presume. Do not presume. Understand what you're looking at. Ask questions. Know what you're looking at. And once you know what you're looking at, cool, right? I don't know if I'm going to do this, but we'll try. Media, be right back. Game, out of game. Okay. There's the desktop and me. Okay. So basically, do this. Think this will work. Nope. Fuck. Whatever, fine, it's fine. One. Wait, what? Oh my god. What's the difference? There's apparently... Oh, probably because it's two different... Okay, whatever. Control by, control paste. Ah, there you go. 2, 3. Right. And then now we go boop. Okay. Two, 3. And it was like, I don't remember exactly, but using there was something, I don't remember, I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically, it was something like you're supposed to draw a line through like all of them, and then like something I don't remember. Fuck. Yeah, I don't remember it. There was something you're supposed to do. Basically, I'm trying. I don't remember. But in school, there was like let's see here. Let's see if she will know. Hey, in school, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was for a psychology class or like a something class, and they're trying to show you how the human mind works and how you need to think outside the box in order to solve a problem. And there was something about the 9 dots, and you're supposed to draw lines through something, and then or something or another, and you're supposed to go outside the boxes and or the lines or the room given to work with to complete the task. But unless you knew it's okay to go out of bounds, the implication is that you wouldn't. And I forgot what it was. Do you know what it is?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's called the 9 dot problem. The challenge is to connect all 9 dots, which are arranged in a 3 by 3 grid, using just 4 straight lines without lifting your pen or pencil. The trick is that you have to think outside the box, which means you have to extend the lines beyond the boundaries of the grid of dots. It's a classic puzzle that demonstrates creative thinking and breaking conventional boundaries.
So yeah, what is it called? The 9 dot problem. So we'll go back to, I don't know, just anything. The 9 dot problem. Yeah, I don't remember. Let's see, videos. Okay, let's see. Um, Before you go and reveal my naked pictures of random stuff. Kidding, by the way, I really don't have that. But anyways, okay, cool. You can see it. So there you go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, but why? Like, I think it was get all of the dots. 4 strokes, get all of the dots, and you have to use 4 strings. 1, Oh, and the lines have to be connected. I think it was as well. So you have 4 strings. But anyways, that was the question, and the idea is that they don't know that they can use a space here and here, and they think they're limited. And so if you're limited, then these 2 dots you can't get. You know what I'm saying? Because the line would be through here, and you'd have these 2 dots, and you're like, huh, how the fuck? But that's how you do it, basically. So the idea again is because they don't know, and again, you should find out if you don't know, and none of them tried to find out, and this is why America fucking sucks, and why the healthcare system sucks, and why people like me and Bernie Sanders and the algorithm are shot to hell, and why we can't fill a chat room, but we can fill a stadium, right? This is why, because, yeah, that what I'm saying is true.
tarate per il peso, invece no.
Look at what happens when you remove the slack side ropes from the initial setup. You're left with this, a mass hanging from a spring hanging from another spring. So these springs are connected in series. Obviously, when you hang a weight from one spring, it extends, just like you'd expect. And the amount it extends by, call it x, is proportional to the force exerted by the weight. That's Hooke's law. But if you
That's a common sense.
add another spring in between in series, now both springs extend roughly the same amount, x, because
Right. So if both of them uh I don't think this is true where both of them are X. Because if the springs, because like your springs suck then. Because basically they're both kind of, they're biased in a way. Like they're made to go that way. And I feel like now the stretching would begin, if that makes sense. It's hard to.
proportional to the force exerted by the weight.
How much weight?
That's
though?
Hooke's law extends by, call it x, is proportional to the force exerted by the weight. That's Hooke's law.
Yeah, the fact that that's barely bouncing tells me that the weight isn't much. So again, you're kind of fucking with visuals here. Like, what's called, that weight would stretch that scale differently depending on how much weight was applied.
But if you add another spring in between in series, now both springs extend roughly.
And it depends on the springs, and I think there's a reason why.
But if you add another,
the way he does it, if you notice, what's it called? He is holding it, basically.
spring in
and he's like pulling it
in between in series, now both springs
and then he lets it go. Why?
extend roughly the same amount.
And why is it barely jumping up and down? Like there's clearly, because like, I can imagine 2 springs, and like I don't see what's it called? I don't think it'd be X. I think there would be some what's it called? Like X would be less because it's pulling up. You know what I'm saying? But because the springs are like equal to the weight, there's some bullshit trickery going
X,
on here.
because both springs feel the same force of the weight pulling from below.
They don't though. It's because the first one is going to the second one, right? And the first one, what's it called? Equalized. Essentially, the weight itself would be less. There's more shit
below.
around here than what we think.
So in the case of ideal massless springs, you would end up with exactly 2x of
In ideal massless springs.
displacement.
Right, but what about a normal situation? Random two springs depends on how much. It depends on what's going into it. If you control it to the, that's manipulation if I've ever heard of.
Now, there's another way to connect these two springs to the weight, and that is in parallel. This way, both springs are independently connected to the hook above and to the weight. So each spring is only carrying half the weight of the mass below.
I want you to prove that both weights are the same. Like, in order for me to say yes to that, I would need to see them both. Because it sounds to me like there's some bullshit going on here. It looks to me.
In parallel. This way, both springs are independently connected to the hook above and to the weight. So each spring is only...
And the weight, is it the same weight or is it a different weight? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there some bullshit going on here? Because I feel like this is what you should get here. Even though they're in a line, basically, they're still going through the springs. But these springs aren't acting like springs, they're acting like strings, basically. Where there's no recoil, or there's no pull back, basically. That's not a spring to me, that's a string.
carrying half the weight of the mass below.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it'd be that. I think the differences would be minute. I don't think it'd be that much. Unless you, of course, built a scale to make this kind of finding profound and make it seem like it'd be more, basically. But again, I'm thinking like an actual spring that as actually it has like pullback, and not so much that it's just a wire that's looped and that we made it seem like it.
Which is why both springs extend only half as far, or x over 2.
If you look at the setup right after the green rope is cut, you'll notice that this is actually exactly how the springs are laid out. So the red rope is connecting the bottom spring directly to the hook above, and the black rope is connecting the top spring to the weight. So these springs...
So that's another detail that we didn't know. Basically, they tied the strings to the springs, basically. So it's not both springs connected, what's called, to both sides. It's like, again, there's a lot of bullshit here.
Are in parallel. So by cutting the green rope, you're actually forcing the springs to go from a series to a parallel.
But now the spring, what's it called, can retract, but the string won't. You see what I'm saying? And if it was stringed all the way from one end to another, there would be no retraction because there's the string. But because it's a string plus spring, it can now retract, or it can expand depending on how, you know what I'm saying?
And that
depends on the density of the spring, I guess.
Change is what causes the contraction to happen.
It depends.
When you cut the rope, each spring only extends by about half as far as before.
That's not half. That's like a quarter. If you look at it, that's hell of tiny. Like, literally. Also, for some reason, what's going on? This also looks a lot like this, but this is stretched out and this isn't. So there's some bullshit going on here.
Which is why you can add so much slack on these black and red ropes to give the impression that the weight is going to fall down.
Impression. Right.
When you cut the rope, you go from
the point.
Series to parallel, and that pushes you up. The slack ropes, that's where I get to cheat, and that's the misleading bit, you know?
It's not really misleading. I mean, it's misleading. The whole thing is misleading. But yeah.
The key to getting this paradox right comes down to the length of
Notice how like they're
the slack
both,
ropes.
like,
Each
they're basically the same, but it's just the difference is like 0.1%. And like, oh wow, the difference. Oh look at that. And yeah, it's just,
one has to be longer than the length of
it's just smoke and mirrors.
one of the springs in series plus the green rope.
Right. You're measuring things, and it's not just randomly made. Basically, it's a lab made and made and designed for specific answers. Is what you're looking for. So.
That's what adds the slack. But they also can't be much longer than that because too much slack will nullify the contraction you get between series and parallel, and the weight will still fall.
Right.
Now,
and again, they don't want that. They want you to believe it's smoke and mirrors, like I said.
you might think that this paradox.
And you're acting like it's science, but in reality, it's just smoke and mirrors. And what's it called? They probably sold out to Russia and China to make you stupid. So
It only really works with the springs in this demo, but the first time it was discovered was actually because of its influence on people.
In April of 19...
That's not really impressive, because most people are just people. They're just existing. But if you're tricking them, you're making the normal not so normal, and then you're acting like they're wrong because you altered the current, when no, it's you're wrong for altering the current. They're not wrong for, like, why are you swimming normal when it's not normal anymore? Well, that's because normal was normal and now it's not normal. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
1990, New York was getting ready for its 20th annual Earth Day. It was going to be Manhattan's biggest celebration of environmentalism to date.
Stop the war against the Earth!
On the day,
it was, we found out we can do stuff. Let's make money off of it.
Central Park was turned into a massive festival ground with almost 1 million people pouring in to see a stacked lineup of performers, including Hall & Oates and the B-52s. But the boldest stunt of the day was to ban...
But I can guarantee none of them were as capable as people like Jimi Hendrix, who actually could make the guitar play. I want to see real performances, not this staged, like, we're pretending to sing bullshit that exists. Like, I've shown, what was it called? The song. I don't remember the song. I'm trying to remember the video. Let's see. I don't remember if I posted a video or what. I'm trying to remember. There was a song. Little Richard seemed real. Follow grubbing. Nursing. Oh, that's what it was. Rebel Yell, Billy Idol. Rebel Yell, scrub mo 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 boom. Oh, right. And the idea was that song was fake. Like, the performance was fake. That kid could not do that stuff naturally, right? And chances are he wasn't the actual performer. Somebody else was, and he's just there to claim it like it was him, right? To take advantage of all the fucking the grouping, what are they called? Those sluts that showed up for it. So
traffic on some of New York's most important streets, including 42nd Street, one of the busiest streets in Manhattan. It stretches from river to river, connecting Times Square to Grand Central Station, and it's almost always jammed with slow-moving traffic.
The only thing that's an hour from 42nd Street is 43rd Street.
And maybe not surprisingly, people were really against this idea, insisting that just a 6-hour closure of 42nd Street would mean doomsday. As the commissioner of New York's Department of Transportation put it, you didn't need to be a rocket scientist or have a sophisticated computer queuing model to see that this could have been a major problem. But the city went ahead with it anyway, and no cars were allowed on 42nd Street for the day. Now, to everyone's surprise, the traffic in the surrounding area actually got better. The number of cars was reduced by 20%, with bystanders claiming the whole area was a ghost town compared to the way it normally is. But one man wasn't surprised by this result. In fact, he predicted it over 20 years earlier. His name was Dietrich Brayes, a German mathematician.
I'd fight him.
And back in 1968, Brayes was studying road networks. As part of his research, he imagined a scenario where drivers from one side of a fictional town were trying to get to the other. But there were only two possible routes the drivers could take. Route 1 starts with a wide highway that takes you halfway across town. The road is so wide that regardless of how many cars are on it, this part of the trip always takes 25 minutes. The second half of this route turns into
regardless of how many cars. So no traffic, and traffic, it takes, 25 minutes.
a narrow city street, and the time to drive through this street depends on how many cars are on it. For every 100 cars on the street, the time to pass through it takes an additional minute. So 100 cars will take 1 minute, 200 cars will take 2 minutes, and so on. The second route through town starts with a similar narrow city street that depends on the number of cars. It takes you halfway across and then turns into another 25-minute highway stretch where the
same thing.
The transit time doesn't depend on traffic. So which route would you take to get across town?
It doesn't matter.
Well, you can see that the routes are identical but flipped, so it doesn't really matter. Since this is just a mathematical model, both will get you there at the same time.
Mathematics or not, it's logically also the same thing.
So say there were 2,000 drivers trying to get across the city. Half of the cars would end up on the first route and half on the second route. And since there are now 1,000 cars going down each narrow city street, the travel time on these segments increases to 10 minutes. So the total time on both routes is 10 minutes for the narrow street plus 25 minutes for the highway, a total of 35 minutes regardless of route. But now say the city decides to connect these two routes at the halfway point with a small piece of highway to give drivers more options.
Hold on. The placement, it wouldn't do that. That's dumb. They wouldn't do that. If the roads were
Routes at the halfway
such, they would have built that in the first place.
Point with a small piece of
roads would be added, or they'd come from somewhere else.
Highway to give drivers more options. This piece only takes a minute to travel across. So which roads would...
But if there's traffic, it should also... Okay, so it takes probably like 10 minutes per 1,000. So
you use now to get across town? Well, as an individual driver, you should just go straight down. It will take you 10 minutes to get through the first city street, 1 minute on the new connecting road, and another 10 minutes for the second street. So your total journey time would now be only 21 minutes compared to the 35 minutes for...
Or 30 minutes, basically. Because, again, if this takes 10 minutes because of traffic, you have to assume that this would also take 10 minutes because of traffic. Assuming that or allowing this assumption is the illusion in general. So allowing this bullshit to take place is what's allowing this bullshit to take place. And it's that bullshit that doesn't matter. We don't fucking care about this. Like, we can already end the example here and now because you're... this is so stupid.
Everyone else on routes 1 and 2.
Okay, great. So you minimize your own time and that's that, right? Well, not really. See, drivers like you are selfish and everyone wants the shortest possible travel time, which means everyone starts flooding the narrow city streets.
As drivers switch to this new shortcut, the narrow streets become more and more congested, making the route slower and slower. But this makes the original routes worse too, because the time to get through the street segments keeps increasing for every driver.
Wait. But if you're going from here, or what is it, here, or which one? Like, I would assume that it's going from A to B to C instead of A to B. Wait, what? A to B. No, A to B, right? A to B, right? Like, and if you're digging, and so the point is, if this is taking 18 minutes, so is this. You understand? Like, you can't have everything applied, but then the middle doesn't apply. That doesn't make sense. You're defeating the purpose. It's a logical problem that doesn't use logic, and so null and void.
So everyone decides to switch to the shortcut, and now all 2,000 cars are driving down the city streets. Now the time to traverse each city street jumps to 20 minutes. So the total journey time for everyone increases to a whopping 41 minutes.
More than that, actually, but for the sake of, okay, so it's 40, 20, 40, 60 is what it really is, obviously. But,
compared to the 35 minutes we had before the new road was constructed.
Right.
So traffic actually got worse for everyone.
Yeah.
To fix it,
That's kind of works. Okay.
drivers could simply go back to their original routes, right? Well, who's going to be the first to switch back? If any one driver goes back to Route 1 or 2, their journey time will be the 25 minutes on the highway plus 20 minutes on the now congested city streets, or 45 minutes in total, which is even worse than the now congested streets. So no single driver would ever want to go back to the original route, and because humans are humans, it's not like we could all just agree to ignore this new road. So even though every driver was making a rational decision to try to minimize their own travel time by just using the city streets, collectively, this made the situation worse for everyone. And there's no way out. But if the city...
The thing is, though, is this logical, again, wouldn't happen. And these little areas would be added as the afterthought instead of this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
were to destroy this new connecting road, everyone's journey time would drop from 41 minutes back to the original 35 minutes on Route 1 and 2. So removing the road would actually make the traffic better. It's just like cutting the green rope from before.
But that's because,
That's been making minutes on Route 1 and 2. But if the city were...
Hold on. I gotta figure
their own travel time by just using the city streets.
So it's 25, or it's 25, yeah, 25. I'm curious.
Collectively, this made the situation worse for everyone. Just every single total, one or every new increases to a whopping jumps to cars are making drivers switch to this new shortcut.
Yeah.
The narrow streets become original street. To fix it, the drivers could simply go back to their original routes. Back on this, the original or this minimize the situation to moving the road original 35 minutes on Route 1 and time would drop. If the city were to destroy this new connecting road, everyone's journey time would drop from 41 minutes back to the original 35 minutes on.
So I forgot where those cars came from. Oh shit. I mean, do that. Where are those cars
on Route 1 and 2.
Okay, so every car that uses it, this sucks. My brain memory. I took notes.
And 2.
Okay, great.
To cross only take a route. On how many cars into it halfway across town takes. The time to drive through this street depends on how wide, but there takes you halfway across town takes 25 drive through. The time to pass through it takes an additional minute. So 100 cars will take 1 minute, 200 cars will take narrow city street that depends on the number of cars. Second route through town starts with a similar narrow city street that depends on the number of cars. It takes you halfway across.
That was I was for some reason I was thinking cars are going this way and cars are going that way, but no, it's cars are going this way and cars are going that way. That's what it was. It's everybody's going from top to bottom. It's not 50 up, 50 down. It's 100% from top to bottom. That's what I forgot. Okay. So if that's the case, then everybody would do this. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you have two routes. Logical, like, damn it, okay. You have two routes, this way and this way, to get to here, right? Here goes Womp and then Womp, whereas Womp and then Womp, right? But the point is, you start, you here, and you go. You start here, and so logically, yeah, it makes sense because you're going from from 2 to 1. That's what you're doing. This
and then turns into another route. So same cars going. So it's more.
Makes sense.
Shorter. For before there one bus, which is everything now one. It's just like if we were to disperse by just using the city streets. Collectively, this made the situation worse for everyone, and there's no way out. But if the city were to destroy this new connecting road, everyone's journey time would drop from 41 minutes back to the original 35 minutes on Route 1 and 2. So removing to destroy
yeah, that makes sense.
This new connecting road, everyone's journey time would drop from 41 minutes back to the original 35 minutes on Route 1 and 2.
And yeah, because you literally went from 2 choices down to 1 and then back up to 2 again. Logically, duh. It's just using your stupid reverse bullshit fucking made to be confusing logic. Yeah, yeah.
So removing the road would actually make the traffic better.
Right, because removing the road, what's it called, is actually adding like, again, this wouldn't happen logically, right? Like, if you had someone smart involved, you would know 2 is better than 1 flat out. Period. End of story. That's it. End of story. It doesn't matter. 2 is better than 1. Why? Because 2 is better than 1. It's just 2. You get 2 1s. Right?
It's just like cutting the green rope from before. That's because both of these
not really
are examples of the same paradox.
Not really.
The springs are like the narrow city roads. The more weight or
you want people to perceive it this way, but no one would.
Cars you add,
or no one should.
The longer they get. And the ropes are like the highways. It doesn't matter how much weight is on them, they don't change. That is, unless you don't know how to tie them properly.
My God.
This is the paradox Dietrich Brayes discovered in 1968. It's now known as Brayes' paradox, and it is the reason why New York traffic got better after 42nd Street was closed on Earth Day.
Now, sure, you'd be right to argue that the reason the traffic decreased on Earth Day in New York was simply because people decided to walk or cycle more that day.
Right.
But it turns out mathematicians actually modeled the whole city in 2008.
You mean you create a problem to find a solution? It's nice.
And they found 12 roads that were redundant and could be cut to actually reduce traffic. And they found 12 roads that were redundant, actually modeled the whole city in 2008, and they found 12 roads
That right here? No. The logic doesn't ring a bell. Right here? No. No, it's stupid. It's not redundant. It's not. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know about this one. It's whatever for this one. I don't. This one also, I don't like to reach the middle. Sure. But, you know what I'm saying?
12 roads that were redundant.
The logic doesn't match. Like this road here, again, no, it doesn't. How would that going away make it faster? It takes you 30 minutes to go around, whereas this one takes you a minute to go through. Oh, it's packed with traffic, so it takes you 10 minutes. Still better than taking 30 minutes to go around.
And could be cut to actually reduce traffic.
Nope, I disagree.
And it's not only New York. The paradox showed up in Boston, London, Seoul. In fact, if you were to randomly add a new road to just about any city, you'd have an equal chance of making the traffic better as worse.
Not really.
But there's nothing.
I think as long as there's idiots leading the show, leading the way, sure, because they're idiots. But no, it's not the same thing. Like that one precise example that you brought up, where you had the two roads from the beginning, and then you brought it down to one road. Yeah, that makes sense. But in a scenario where there's 10 roads, and there's 5 on one and 5 on the other, and to get rid of that road in the middle that's connecting the two, no, it doesn't follow the same logic. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing special about the flow of cars. Say instead you want to send electricity from one station to another. Well, now you're looking at the flow of electrons in a power grid. And just as before, you could try to improve the grid by increasing the capacity of existing lines, or by adding new lines. But it turns out that this can actually destabilize the grid, or even cause a blackout. And
how?
Virtually any other network, anytime you're sending things from one place to another.
How? Like, it depends. Everything depends. And your logic is to not include the it depends. It's stupid.
It can fall prey to Braze's paradox.
No. Braze's paradox is bullshit. I call bullshit.
Be it a food chain, blockchain, or even the internet.
Again, it's a problem seeking a solution seeking a problem instead of a problem seeking a solution. Right?
Adding elements to the network can make it worse.
So more traffic equals bad, then less traffic. Duh.
Less can actually be more, and that kind of got me thinking.
Less can be more. It depends.
It's the same with your data on the internet. The less of your private info is on the web, the better. See, I got an email from someone. I thought it was spam, actually box Grace, and actually suggested those are
people search. Ogni tracks down the sketch in your life
or all your data.
Conditions for it. Doesn't
the internet. Go get it off.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Braze's paradox doesn't occur every time you modify a network. You need a very specific set of conditions for it to occur.
That's what I'm saying.
But if you can make it work consistently, you get this.
So we're here at the Amolf Institute, where they actually figured out how to make something shrink when you pull it. So let's go check it out. Is it here?
Yeah, I made all the samples.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Right? I guess you never expect things to yank back on you so unexpectedly, because a rubber band, you're stretching it and you feel it wants to pull back on you more and more, but here just you're never ready for it.
Increasing suddenly, which is a weird feeling.
There's something almost like human about it where it starts tugging back on you when it gets mad.
What's special about this mechanism is that everything else around us works in the complete opposite way. Try to
It's designed to look that way.
press one of your keyboard buttons slowly so that it steadily goes down into place. You can't do it. No matter how slowly you go, there is some point at which it just gives way and clicks through. The same happens if you try to stretch a bendy straw. You can pull on it as slowly as you like, but at some point, the individual straw joints are going to expand suddenly. Light switches, eyeglasses, grasshopper legs, these all have a failure point beyond which they give way and quickly snap into a different position. And this
Right. And the thing is, you don't realize, is when you're pulling the strings, if you stopped right away, it would stop. But because of the way humans work, again, it depends, and I'm breaking it open, but humans keep pulling, and the second one gives away, then all that force has to go to the next one, which is the next one, and then you get that brrr, and then eventually stop because you stop, basically. So, yeah.
This is called, well, snapping. Here it is mapped to a force displacement graph. As you'd expect, the more force you apply, the more the material bends or displaces. But eventually you reach a tipping point, and beyond it, the force required to bend the material further actually drops. So if you apply a force higher than that peak, the displacement has to rush to the next corresponding value to match the force, which is all the way on the other side of this dip. And as a result, you get a huge amount of displacement for that tiny increase in force. That's what creates the sudden snap.
It's very
All that, to me, was horse shit.
intuitive. I mean, you've all experienced
Look at we can flick a switch. Wow, is that cool, huh? Like, what the fuck are you doing? There's starving children in Africa. What the fuck are you doing?
it, at least if you're in the Netherlands with your umbrella. There's a gust of wind underneath your umbrella, it pops to the other side. So you sort of go over a peak in energy or in force and it suddenly snaps and typically it becomes softer.
And this is the way all things snap. Everything used to fail in the direction of the applied force, until this mechanism came about, doing the exact opposite of snapping. Call it counter snapping. Imagine that gust of wind blows under your umbrella, but instead of flipping out, your umbrella suddenly closes in. Or you try to pull apart a straw and the joints suddenly contract.
So wind is pushing on my umbrella, but instead of it folding out, it
would push itself against the wind to close itself, right?
But it feels like it violates physics. It's just...
You need to explain it to me because these guys are idiots and they're good marketing scams to get money from people. But you put me in the arena, I'm going to protect your dollar.
So counterintuitive that the displacement is in the other direction to the force.
That's why it's...
We are both simpletons, and we are both sheep, and we obey our overlords and our booticus.
Fun.
So how does this thing work? Well, the mechanism itself is built out of 3 different components, and on their own, they all stretch normally when you try to pull them apart.
Individually, they behave like springs in the sense that they extend when you pull on them.
But then you combine them together and then suddenly they shrink.
Exactly.
If you draw the system as a set of springs, it looks something like this. The long and lanky components represent the 2 springs on the sides, but they actually don't feel like springs at all. You can easily pull them apart until they suddenly get very stiff. Meanwhile, these pieces represent the top and bottom springs.
Fantastic.
And they feel a lot more springy, so the more you pull them, the more they pull back. And finally, the central piece, it looks very similar to the previous one, but pulling it apart feels very snappy. In fact, you can even hear it snap out. Put them all together, and you get the mechanism. If you stretch it slowly, you'll see how tension builds up in the 3 middle pieces, with the sides staying mostly relaxed. But if you keep stretching, the centerpiece will suddenly snap out and transfer most of its tension to the side springs. This causes the system to stiffen and shrink. If you now let go, the system resets. So the mechanism can flip between a set of springs in series to one in parallel. It's a reversible case of Braze's paradox.
Not really.
The network is basically the same as the breast power.
Again, you're building a solution to a problem. This is what happens when kids are in a bubble and not actually saving children where they should be using their minds. I'm too afraid. I'm never gonna play ranked to League of Legends because I'm a bitch and I won't do it, but I'll play bots. I'll play bots and I'll waste my time with bots. But I don't want to play rank because I don't want to face people. But when it comes to just, scratching my own butthole, it's good to go. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah. So the way they are connected, the topology of the connection is exactly the same.
The force displacement graph you get for the mechanism is one that loops in on itself with two distinct curves. One for the system in series and the other for the system in parallel. And this leads to some pretty remarkable properties. If you slowly control the stretching force by adding water to a cup below the mechanism first slightly sags, like you'd expect, but when you reach the tipping point at the end of this curve, the displacement has to quickly reduce to keep following the force along the graph. And this jump back is why the mechanism shrinks. Now, you can also control displacement. This displacement has to quickly back. But when you reach the tipping point at the end of this curve, the displacement has to quickly reduce. But when you reach the tipping point at the end of this curve, the displacement has to.
So basically,
You'd expect. But when you.
It's just a bunch of. It looks to be, but it actually isn't. And what I mean by that, if you look. These are like the so it's this part, and then there's the inner flap that gives away the most, right? But the thing is that goes and goes and goes to like we'll say 40%, and then it gives basically and passes to the rest, and then that's why it looks like it shrinks. Because it's going from one side to the other, basically. It's not really shrinking. It's just that it's passing the load off to something else. That's why you see what you see.
Reach the tipping point at the first slightly sags, like you'd expect.
Normal.
But when you reach the tipping point at the end of this curve, the displacement has to quickly reduce to keep following the.
It went from what's it called? Build up, and then all of a sudden it passes it, and it's released. All that pressure is now released, and it looks like it sucks up because all that weight is going down the middle, but the sides went up, and it looks like it went up, but it really didn't.
The force along the graph, and this displacement has to quickly. But when you reach the tipping point at the end of this curve, the displacement has to quickly reduce to keep following the force along the graph.
And that's why they designed it the way that they did. It's because you need a 3. It doesn't work with just 1 because it's a lie.
And this jump back is why the mechanism shrinks. Now,
it doesn't really shrink.
You can also control displacement instead of force and measure how much force it takes to stretch the mechanism at any point. This time, when you reach the tipping point, it's the force that has to follow displacement along the graph. So you get a sudden jump up in force, showing that the material has stiffened.
Oh, this little force jump is enough to make it slip out of your hands, for example.
I mean, even though you said it is a small jump, it's like this is the only thing that does this anywhere probably on Earth.
Because no one has a design for something that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just you want a cookie for having your own invention, and you get your name in the book, and you're like, I am alpha now. I'd never get known or recognized for anything else, but I've tricked and weaseled my way. Again, that's why I talk about the squids that hide their penis to get with the chicks.
As far as we know, the force jumping like this, it was not reported.
Oh yeah, this is pretty insane.
So what is counter-snapping actually used?
Reported. It is pretty insane.
He's like, hee, when he's like, whatever, dude. It's because he knows it doesn't really do anything cool.
So what is counter-snapping actually useful for? Well, notice that there is a force at which the series and parallel curves for the system
This is where he tries to trick you into buying his bridge.
overlap, which means that at this force, the mechanism will actually be the same length in both states. So if you exert that exact force on the structure by, for example, hanging a weight from it, you can flip between the two states by giving the mechanism a little tug. And although that will change whether the springs are in series or parallel, it won't change how long the system actually is. So you can change the stiffness without changing the length. Now,
so from changing it between two forces, one being loose and one being tight, oh wow, so magical.
look at what happens if you give the mechanism a nudge in its original series state.
If you poke it, it's basically a way to measure the natural frequency.
Oh yeah.
When the mechanism is in series, the natural frequency is 3.7 hertz. But if you switch to a parallel setup, the natural frequency increases to 6.4 hertz.
We switch it and we look at the natural frequency now, we can see it's much higher.
What's unique here is that you're able to almost double the natural frequency of the material without changing its length.
That's not almost double, by the way. Almost, that's 7.4. This is not almost double. Like, that's double. The 3 to 6, that is double. But that 4 is not a 7. Like, 3.7 twice is 7.4, which this is 6.4, so no.
I'm gonna move the robotic arm very slightly, just up and down.
Yeah, okay.
And I put a frequency of 3.5 hertz, so it's close to the natural frequency of this system.
This is going to drive the structure into resonance. But once the vibrations get big enough, the mechanism is actually going to switch states on its own, change its natural frequency, and thereby reduce the vibrations.
Like, it gets stronger and stronger, and then it just locks it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
You mean to tell me that you push a button hard enough and eventually it turns on? Whoa!
The same happens in reverse. If you vibrate the robot hand at 6.4 hertz, the mechanism is quickly going to switch back to its original state and minimize the vibration.
So you need to tell me if you push a button again, it will eventually turn on.
It's interesting, the way that you say it, we're moving the point at which resonance happens.
Not really.
It's interesting, the way that you say it, we're moving the point at which resonance.
And notice how they don't sit there. Like, if it was a legit feature, it would literally just show it the whole time while I was talking, but they have something to hide probably. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not looking into it. I'm just saying they're not showing you end changers for a reason.
Happens, and that's what stops excessive vibrations.
Yeah. And
interesting, yeah.
Other snapping structures could also switch upon resonance, but the problem is that once they switch, they're much more elongated, much more contracted, so they don't, let's say, they wouldn't provide the same function.
You could use this effect to keep structures from vibrating or reaching resonance.
Not really.
Could it be easier to install a system like this where you're actually moving the resonance instead of like a whole tune mass damper or something like that?
Yeah, I think this solution is still very complex. It's very complicated design, but I think the principle could be used.
Right. It's complicated because you have to measure it for precision to do a particular thing, and that particular thing it's good at. It's just that we don't know what the hell that is because there's no use for it. That's what you're talking about. Congratulations for testing. Good job.
I know it's still super early, but I'm really excited to see like it pop up somewhere in a couple of years or decades.
It will never pop up.
It's more about the concept and showing what it can do. We're going to try to see if we can maybe make counter snapping also, maybe with different type of variables.
It's going to be like a balloon that deflates when you inflate it.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
You increase the pressure.
A balloon that deflates when you inflate. No, it's nothing alike. You dumb bitch. It's a trick. It's not actually a thing. It looks like a thing.
Pressure and the volume would decrease.
Wait, really? That's crazy.
That would
Not really.
be the equivalent.
I'm trying to lead you.
But we.
I'm trying to make you make decisions based on stupid logic that I'm acting profounded and stupefied by. But in reality, I don't give a shit. I'm just faking it because I want to make a sale. I'll buy my product. What's it called? The people that bought my soul. They F me daily in the A with the sponsors. There you go.
It's not there yet, but we'll see if.
That's so cool.
In principle, it should be possible.
Yeah.
In principle, it should be possible. But realistically, we're going to throw it away. That's basically what I got from that. Anyways, as you can see, that's it. And I'm probably going to have to go through bullshit with it. Oh my god, you used our video. Your video, that was only 23 minutes. You made a video in response that's an hour and 20 minutes. Talking about random bullshit. That's not transformative enough for us. Yeah, we don't want you to make money off of it. It's just stupid. This is Richard. This is what it looks like to be sold a bridge. This is what it looks like to have someone take your car and drive off a cliff, and then they walk away and survive the explosion. And like, that's fun. And they leave you with the fucking blown up car. Like, congratulations. That's basically what this is. Anyways, I'm out, people. God bless, Godspeed, God strength, God loves. Omega Blossom, Cherry Awesome, potato salads, and I don't know, coffee. I like coffee. I'm almost out, unfortunately. But be well, be safe, be awesome. God's bless, God's speed, praise, all praise. You have in Final Fantasy X reference. I'm out of here. Be well, be safe, be happy, peace, be smart, be a thinker. I don't know what the fuck happened to you, you solid little bitch. Alright, I'm out. Peace.